What if I told you that in the 70s, Aussie cops weren't just driving regular old sedans, but high-powered muscle cars, luxury cruisers, and even some wild oddballs? Imagine being a getaway driver, thinking you could outrun the cops, only to see a V8-powered Holden Monaro GTS or a Ford Falcon GTHO Phase 3 closing in behind you at 225 kilometers per hour. From the unexpected to the downright legendary, these are the most shocking cars the Aussie police used in the 70s. Some were pure speed demons, others were tough as nails, and one, well, you won't believe how rare it is today. Let's get into it. Number 20. Toyota Crown S50 Series. Kicking things off with a car that'll make you say, wait, really? The Toyota Crown. Yep, a Toyota. In the late 60s and early 70s, some police departments needed something reliable and, let's face it, not too intimidating. The S50 Series Crown wasn't about winning drag races. Its 2-litre inline-4 engine put out about 105 horsepower. This meant a top speed of around 145 kilometers per hour and 0 to 100 kilometers per hour. Let's just say it took its time, around 15 seconds. You could get it with a 3-speed manual or a 3-speed auto. But here's the thing, police valued its build quality and comfortable ride. It was perfect for city patrols and, maybe getting donuts. A new one back then would cost around $2,800, and prices these days can be around $20,000. A little-known fact is that some of these Crowns were actually fitted with slightly uprated suspension components, not for high-speed chases, but to better handle the extra weight of police radios and other equipment. They were also known for having surprisingly comfortable seats, a welcome feature for officers spending long hours on patrol. Number 19. Holden Belmont HQ Series. Next up, a real workhorse, the Holden Belmont. This wasn't the fancy Holden, and that's exactly why some police forces liked it. Think cheap and cheerful. The Belmont HQ Series usually had a 2.8-litre inline-6, making around 115 horsepower. Top speed was about 95 kilometers per hour, and 0 to 100 took a leisurely 14 seconds. 3-speed manual was standard, with an optional 3-speed auto. The police liked it because it was easy to fix and didn't cost a fortune to keep running. Police departments would have paid around $2,500, and today, a well-kept one could be around $25,000. What many people don't know is that the Belmont's basic interior was actually a plus for police work. It was easy to clean and maintain, and there were fewer fancy gadgets to break down. Number 18. Chrysler Valiant Ranger V8 Series. Now for a bit more grunt, the Chrysler Valiant Ranger. This wasn't the top-of-the-line Charger, but it was still a solid choice for the police. The V8 Series Ranger usually came with a 3.5-litre Hemi 6 engine, good for about 140 horsepower. Top speed? Around 169 kilometers per hour, and 0 to 100 in about 11 seconds. You had a choice of a 3-speed manual or a 3-speed auto. Police departments liked its robust design and spacious interior. Plenty of room for gear. Back then, they would go for an estimated $2,700, but nowadays it would be difficult to find one. Prices could be around $25,000. Interestingly, the Ranger's Hemi 6 engine, despite sharing the Hemi name with Chrysler's famous V8s, was a completely different design, unique to Australia. Number 17. Ford Falcon 500 XA Series. Let's talk about a classic Aussie name, the Ford Falcon 500. This one was a popular choice, especially in rural areas. The XA Series Falcon 500 often came with a 3.3-litre inline-6, making around 130 horsepower. Top speed was about 161 kilometers per hour, and 0 to 100 took around 12.5 seconds. A 3-speed manual was standard, with an optional 3-speed auto. The Falcon 500 was known for being tough and reliable, perfect for those long stretches of rural roads. Back in the days, the police departments would buy these for around $2,600. Finding a good one in the market these days would be difficult, and prices can be around $25,000. A lesser-known detail is that some rural police Falcons were fitted with special dust seals and air filters to cope with the harsh conditions of unsealed roads. Number 16. Leyland P76 V8. Here's one that might surprise you. The Leyland P76 V8. This car had a bit of a mixed reputation, but some police departments saw its potential. The P76 had a big selling point. A 4.4-litre aluminum V8, making a decent 192 horsepower. This meant a top speed of around 177 kilometers per hour and 0 to 100 in about 9.5 seconds. You could get it with a 4-speed manual or a 3-speed auto. And get this, the trunk was huge, designed to fit a 200-litre drum. It also had some pretty advanced safety features for its time. A new one would cost around $3,000, and these days it can be worth over $20,000. What's often overlooked is that the P76's aluminum V8 engine was actually quite advanced for its time, being relatively lightweight and efficient. It was derived from a Buick design, but extensively modified by Leyland Australia. (15) Holden Torana GTR XU1. Time for some real Aussie muscle, the Holden Torana GTR XU1. This little rocket was perfect for city cops who needed to be quick. The LJ Series XU1 packed a 3.3-litre inline-six, tuned to produce a whopping 190 horsepower. This gave it a top speed around 201 kilometers per hour and 0 to 100 kilometers per hour in a blistering 6.5 seconds. It was all tied to a 4-speed manual. The key was its lightweight and performance-tuned suspension. Back in the 70s, this car would cost the departments around $3,200. A good example is rare to find and might cost well over $50,000. A fun fact, the XU1 designation was reportedly chosen because it sounded fast and futuristic, and it certainly lived up to the name. Some police XU1s were even fitted with subtle engine modifications for extra performance. Number 14. Chrysler Valiant Charger V8 series. Let's crank up the heat with the Chrysler Valiant Charger. This car was a favourite for cops who needed to respond quickly. The V8 series Charger, especially the RTE49 variant, was a beast. Its 4.3-litre Hemi 6 engine could crank out a massive 302 horsepower. The regular police versions often had the 218 horsepower version of the Hemi 6. We are talking about top speeds around 201 to 209 kilometers per hour and 0 to 100 in the 6.5 second range for the lower spec and an incredible 6.1 for the top spec. It was usually hooked up to a 4-speed manual. Its compact design and high power-to-weight ratio made it incredibly agile. Back then, these cost the departments around $3,000 to $3,500. Prices can vary, but a real E49 these days is a goldmine, easily going for over $200,000. Many don't know that the Charger's distinctive 6-pack triple Weber carburetors on the E49 were a key part of its incredible performance. Number 13. Ford Falcon GT XR series. Now, let's go back to where it all started, the Ford Falcon GT XR series. This car was the grandpa of Aussie muscle car cops. This was the first Aussie Falcon GT. It packed a 4.7-litre Windsor V8, making a solid 225 horsepower. This meant a top speed around 193 kilometers per hour and 0 to 100 in about 8 seconds. And of course, it had a 4-speed manual. It had unique styling and performance upgrades that set it apart from regular Falcons. It would cost around $3,800 back then. These days, they're pretty special, and finding a genuine one could cost you over $100,000. The XR GT's victory at the 1967 Gallagher 500 Bathurst race cemented its legendary status and boosted its appeal to police forces. Number 12, Holden Commodore VHSS. Now the next car might be a little bit out of the 70s, but still special. Let's step a bit ahead. The Holden Commodore VHSS. This was another step in the evolution of Aussie police cars. The VHSS rocked a 5-litre V8, pumping out a hefty 237 horsepower. This meant a top speed of around 209 kilometers per hour and 0 to 100 in about 7.5 seconds. You could get it with a 4-speed manual or a 3-speed auto. It had a sporty design and improved suspension, making it a great all-around performer for police work. Police departments paid around $12,000 back then. Today, a good example is considered a classic, and you can expect to pay over $40,000. Some police VHSS was specially tuned by Holden's racing division, HDT, Holden Dealer Team, giving them even more performance.
Up Mountain Straight, already out on his own.
Number 11. Ford Falcon GTHO Phase 3. Get ready for a legend, the Ford Falcon GTHO Phase 3. This car was a straight-up beast, and the police knew it. This thing was considered one of the fastest sedans in the world at the time. Its 5.8-litre Cleveland V8 made around 300 horsepower, though some say it was even more. It had a shaker hood scoop that looked awesome and helped the engine breathe. This translated to a mind-blowing top speed of 229 kilometers per hour and 0 to 100 in about 6.4 seconds. And of course, a 4-speed manual was the only way to go. Police back then would spend around $5,000 to get one. Today, these are incredibly rare and valuable, easily fetching over $500,000 and even over $1 million for the best. The GTHO Phase 3 was so fast that it actually caused some controversy, with concerns about its suitability for public roads, even for the police. Number 10. Ford Fairlane 500 ZC Series. Let's go luxurious with the Ford Fairlane 500. This was the big, comfortable cruiser. The ZC Series Fairlane 500 had a 5.8-litre Windsor 5.8, churning out 250 horsepower. This meant a top speed of around 185 kilometers per hour. The big deal here was the extended wheelbase, which gave it a smoother ride. It also came with power steering and even air conditioning. A big deal back then. And of course, it had a 3-speed automatic. They cost around $3,500 back in the day. And today, a well-maintained example could go for over $30,000. The Fairlane's spacious interior wasn't just for comfort, it also allowed police officers to carry more equipment and, in some cases, transport prisoners more securely. Number 9. Holden Monaro GTS 350 HQ Series. Now the bigger question here is, why on earth would a police force need something this monstrous? The HQ Monaro GTS 350 packed a 5.7-litre Chevrolet V8, making a serious 275 horsepower with 360 pound-foot of torque. This translated to a top speed around 209 kilometers per hour and 0 to 100 in about 7.5 seconds. You could get it with a 4-speed manual or the optional Turbo Hydromatic 400 3-speed auto. It had those cool dual headlights, a sporty coupe body, and a rear spoiler. It was the ultimate Aussie muscle car, and some police departments used them for highway patrol. Police would pay an estimated $4,500 for a new one. Today, these are highly sought-after classics, and a pristine example can easily command over $100,000. The Monaro GTS 350's Chevrolet V8 engine was a significant departure from Holden's usual 6-cylinder engines, giving it a distinct performance advantage. The 350 designation, of course, referred to the engine's displacement in cubic inches. Number 8. Ford Landau. The Ford Landau. Sure, it had a 5.8-litre Cleveland 5.8, making 290 horsepower, a top speed of 193 kilometers per hour, and a 0 to 100 time of around 8.5 seconds, and that 3-speed automatic. The police versions came with 4-wheel disc brakes, a really advanced feature at the time. But it was also known for its luxury interior. While some were used for patrol, others were used for ceremonial purposes, escorting VIPs and showing off at public events. They went for around $6,000 back then. Finding one today is difficult, and values can exceed $50,000 for pristine examples. The Landau was essentially a two-door version of the Ford Fairlane, and its unique styling, including a vinyl roof and hidden headlights, made it stand out. But hold on. One of these police cars wasn't just about power or luxury. It was about good old-fashioned toughness, a car built to handle anything the Aussie Outback could throw at it. Which one was it? Keep watching. Number 7. AMC Matador. The AMC Matador. Now, this one's a bit of an oddball, but hear me out. The Matador, used by some Australian police forces, wasn't about outright speed. It was about being tough. It packed a 5.9-litre V8 with a 4-barrel carburetor. And while horsepower figures aren't widely publicised for the Aussie police versions, it was all about torque and reliability. It came with a 3-speed automatic and had heavy-duty suspension. Police departments liked it because it was spacious and could handle rough conditions. Pricing information is hard to track down, but Matadors, in general, are becoming increasingly collectible, with prices varying wildly depending on condition. Interestingly, the Matador was also used by police forces in the United States, particularly in Los Angeles, where it gained some fame on the TV show Adam 12. Number 6. Chrysler Valiant VC, used by Victoria and South Australia Police. The Chrysler Valiant VC was used for high-speed pursuits. The VC had two options, 225 cubic inch inline 6 or the optional 273 cubic inch V8. The V8 gave a much better acceleration as compared to the inline 6. It also came with both 3-speed manual and automatic transmission. The VC Valiant's relatively simple and robust construction made it easy to repair and maintain, an important factor for police vehicles. Number 5. Ford Falcon GT XB series. Let's talk about another Falcon GT, the XB series. This one was all about aggressive styling and serious performance. The XB Falcon GT packed a 5.8-litre Cleveland V8, making a hefty 300 horsepower. This gave it a top speed around 209 kilometers per hour and 0 to 100 in about 7 seconds. You could choose between a 4-speed manual or a 3-speed auto. It had those cool bonnet scoops, integrated driving lights, and GT badges that let everyone know this was no ordinary Falcon. Police used them for high-speed pursuits and highway patrols. A new one cost police departments around $5,000 back then, and finding a good example today is not easy. Prices can easily cross $100,000. The XB Falcon GT was featured prominently in the original Mad Max movie, further solidifying its iconic status. Number 4. Holden Kingswood HQ series. So here is something you might wonder. How did this family car turn into a police car? The HQ series Kingswood often came with a 3.3-litre inline 6. Making around 135 horsepower, or an optional 4.2-litre V8 with around 185 horsepower. This gave it a top speed of around 169 kilometers per hour for the 6-cylinder and 115 kilometers per hour for the V8, and 0 to 100 in about 12 seconds for the 6-cylinder and 9 seconds for the V8. A 3-speed manual was standard and a 3-speed Trimatic automatic. Police used them for general patrol, highway patrol, and pursuit duties. Back in the 70s, this car would cost the departments around $3,000 to $3,500. A good example might cost well over $20,000 to $40,000. Plus, V8 models are more expensive. What many people may not know, is that some police Kingswoods were fitted with heavy-duty police packs that included upgraded suspension, brakes, and electrical systems. Number 3. Ford Cortina. Smaller than the Falcon, the Ford Cortina, either the 440 or the 6. Don't be fooled though, some police departments preferred using it, mainly in urban areas, for a more maneuverable vehicle. The TCTD series Cortina often came with a 3.3-litre inline 6, producing 92 to 103 horsepower, or the larger 4.1-litre inline 6 with around 120 to 155 horsepower. Top speed was about 153 to 169 kilometers per hour, and 0 to 100 took around 11 to 14 seconds. A 3-speed manual was standard with an optional 3-speed automatic. The police used them for urban patrols, traffic enforcements, and general duties. Back in the days, the police departments would buy these for around $2,500 to $3,000. Finding a good one in the market these days is not always easy, and prices can be around $10,000 to $25,000 plus. What many people don't know is that the Cortina was assembled in Australia by Ford, making it a local product and contributing to its popularity with government and fleet buyers, including police. Number 2. Datsun. Let's talk about Japanese reliability. The Datsun 180B and 200B. Yes, some Australian police forces were using them for general patrol and highway pursuit. The 180B came with a 1.8-litre inline 4, making a decent 85 horsepower, while the 200B had a 2-litre inline 4, producing 95 horsepower. This translated to a top speed of around 159 to 169 kilometers per hour, and 0 to 100 in about 13 to 14 seconds. It came with a 3-speed automatic and a 4-speed manual. Back in the 70s, this car would cost the departments around $3,000. A good example is rare to find and might cost well over $10,000. A little-known fact is that the New South Wales Police Force was among those who utilised the 180B for patrol and general duties. 1. Holden HJ Kingswood. And here it is, the number 1. A car that doesn't always get the spotlight, but it sure deserves it, the Holden HJ Kingswood. This was the kind of car that got the job done without making a big fuss about it. The HJ Kingswood usually came with a 3.3-litre inline 6, pumping out around 120 horsepower. But if the police needed extra muscle, there was an optional 4.2-litre V8, making about 185 horsepower. Top speed? The inline 6 could reach around 153 kilometers per hour, while the V8 pushed that up to 177 kilometers per hour. The 0 to 100 kilometer per hour times sat at around 13.5 seconds for the 6-cylinder and about 10.5 seconds for the V8. Back in the day, these cars went for roughly $3,000. But if you're lucky enough to find one today, expect to pay well over $20,000, depending on the condition. The Kingswood was the perfect all-rounder, reliable, tough, and spacious enough for police gear. It wasn't the flashiest, but it got the job done, which is exactly why so many police departments trusted it. And there you have it, 20 of the most shocking police cars from 1970s Australia. Some were built for speed, others were practically indestructible. But which one surprised you the most? Drop your thoughts in the comments.